The entire courtroom snickered as the lawyer held up Rebecca's bank statement. It showed a balance of exactly $42. Her ex-husband Vincent leaned back in his Italian suit, whispering to his mistress that he was finally going to be free of the leech. He thought he had won. He thought Rebecca was just a broke, failed artist begging for scraps. But Vincent made a fatal calculation. He didn't know that the woman sitting quietly in the thrift store cardigan wasn't just Rebecca, the housewife, anymore. He was about to find out that the failed business he mocked was actually a shell company for the largest tech acquisition in European history. When the judge reads a final document, Vincent won't just lose the case. He's going to lose everything. The atmosphere inside the Superior Court of Chicago, Courtroom 304, was suffocating. The air conditioning hummed, but it did nothing to cool the burning humiliation on Rebecca's cheeks. She sat alone at the defendant's table. There was no high-powered legal team whispering in her ear. There was just her, clutching a frayed canvas tote bag, wearing a gray wool cardigan that had seen better days. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, messy bun, and she wore zero makeup. To the casual observer, she looked defeated. Across the aisle, the scene was entirely different. Vincent Crawford, CEO of Crawford Technologies, looked like he had just stepped out of Forbes' photo shoot. His navy bespoke suit fit his broad shoulders perfectly. On his wrist sat a Patek Philippe Nautilus, worth more than the house Rebecca grew up in. Flanking him were 3 lawyers from Morrison, Blake & Associates, the most vicious divorce firm in Illinois. Leading the pack was Diana Morrison, a woman known in legal circles as the Viper. She adjusted her rimless glasses and stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Your Honor," Diana began, her voice dripping with faux sympathy that barely masked the disdain. "We are here today because the defendant, Ms. Rebecca Montgomery, refuses to sign the dissolution papers. She is demanding an exorbitant alimony settlement, $5,000 a month, claiming she cannot support herself." Diana paused, turned to look at Rebecca with a sneer. "My client, Mr. Crawford, has been more than generous. He supported this woman's hobbies for 5 years. He paid for her food, her clothes, and her housing. And now, after contributing absolutely nothing to the marital assets, she wants a salary for existing." "Objection," Rebecca said. Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat and stood up. "I didn't just exist. I managed the household. I hosted his business dinners. I edited his proposals before he sent them to investors." Vincent let out a loud, scoffing laugh. He didn't even try to hide it. Judge Robert Hamilton slammed his gavel. "Mr. Crawford, restrain yourself or I will have you removed." "Apologies, Your Honor," Vincent said, smirking. "It's just, she thinks proofreading an email creates a billion-dollar company. It's adorable, really." Diana Morrison resumed her attack. "Your Honor, let's look at the facts. Mr. Crawford built Crawford Technologies from the ground up during the marriage. It is now valued at $400 million. Ms. Montgomery, on the other hand, started a business 3 years ago, Rebecca's Artisan Pottery, a pottery studio." Diana picked up a piece of paper, Exhibit A, and waved it like a weapon. "According to her tax returns, this business has operated at a loss for 3 consecutive years. In the last quarter, her reported income was 0. She is not a partner, Your Honor. She is a dependent, a financial liability. And now that Mr. Crawford has found happiness with someone who actually operates on his level." Diana gestured to the back of the room. Sitting in the front row of the gallery was Melissa, Vincent's 24-year-old mistress and former personal assistant. She was wearing a diamond necklace that Rebecca recognized. It was the one Vincent had claimed was lost during their anniversary trip to Barcelona last year. Melissa gave a small, pitying wave to Rebecca. "We ask that the court enforce the prenuptial agreement," Diana concluded. "0 alimony. Ms. Montgomery leaves with her personal effects and her business, if you can even call it that. Mr. Crawford keeps his company, the penthouse in the Miami estate." The judge looked over his spectacles at Rebecca. "Miss Montgomery, you are representing yourself. Do you have a counterargument regarding your financial status?" Rebecca looked at Vincent. He was checking his phone, completely unbothered. He looked at her like she was a stain on his shoe. "Yes, Your Honor," Rebecca said, her voice growing steadier. "I do have an argument, but first I'd like to question my husband regarding the nature of his success." Vincent rolled his eyes and stood up, walking to the witness stand. He looked bored. He had no idea that the trap had already been set. Vincent took the oath, his hand resting casually on the Bible. He winked at Melissa in the gallery. Rebecca walked to the podium. She didn't have a stack of files like Diana. She had a single thin manila envelope. "Mr. Crawford," Rebecca began, "you claim that I contributed nothing to Crawford Technologies." "That's correct," Vincent said, leaning into the microphone. "You threw dinner parties. Rebecca, you didn't code the software. You didn't close the deals with the Korean investors." "I did that." "The deal with Seoul Digital Industries?" Rebecca asked. "Yes, the deal that put us on the map." "And do you remember who translated the contracts for that deal?" Rebecca asked quietly. "Because the translators you hired kept missing the nuance of the cultural honorifics." "You were about to offend the CO, Mr. Kim." Vincent waved his hand dismissively. "You speak a little Korean because you did a study abroad. Helping with a few words isn't business equity. Rebecca, it's being a helpful wife. You should have done it." "And the seed money," Rebecca pressed. "When we were first married 5 years ago, you needed $50,000 to buy the servers. Where did that come from?" Vincent stiffened slightly. "It was a loan." "From whom?" "It was a private loan. I paid it back with interest." "It was from my grandmother's inheritance, Vincent," Rebecca said, her eyes locking onto his. "The only money I had in the world. I gave it to you." Diana Morrison shot up from her seat. "Objection. Irrelevant. The prenuptial agreement waives rights to initial investments if they have been repaid. Mr. Crawford repaid that loan 2 years ago. We have the receipt." "Sustained," Judge Hamilton said, though he looked at Vincent with narrowed eyes. "Miss Montgomery, move on. Prove why you deserve alimony, or I will rule in favor of the plaintiff." Rebecca took a deep breath. "I don't want alimony, Your Honor." The courtroom went silent. Even the court stenographer stopped typing for a split second. Diana blinked. "Excuse me? I don't want $5,000 a month," Rebecca repeated. "I withdraw that request." Vincent let out a loud exhale, laughing in relief. Finally, she came to her senses. She knows she can't win. He turned to the judge. "See, she's wasting the court's time. She just wants attention." "However," Rebecca continued, ignoring him, "I do want to discuss the assets, specifically the valuation of my failed business, Rebecca's artisan pottery." Vincent snorted. "Oh, God, here we go. She want me to buy her kiln. Fine, I'll give her $500 for the pots." "Mr. Crawford," Rebecca said, opening her manila envelope, "you and your lawyers have spent months mocking my business. You call it a tax write-off and a hobby. You signed a legal document stating you wanted absolutely no claim to it. Correct?" "I don't want your dirty clay shop, Rebecca," Vincent spat. "I want the divorce decree signed. Keep your little shop. Sell mugs on Etsy. I don't care." "So, to be clear," Rebecca turned to the judge, "the plaintiff is going on record, under oath, waiving all rights to the entity known as Rebecca's Artisan Pottery and all its subsidiaries and holdings in perpetuity." "Yes," Vincent shouted, losing his temper. "I waive it. It's worthless. Judge, can we please end this farce?" Diana Morrison looked uneasy. She was a shark, and sharks sense blood in the water. Something wasn't right. Why was Rebecca so calm? Why was she focusing on a business that made $0? "Your Honor," Diana said slowly, "we would like to review the documents regarding this entity before finalizing the waiver." "Too late," Rebecca said sharply. "He just said it under oath. It's on the record." Judge Hamilton nodded. The witness has made his position clear. He wants no part of the defendant's business. Proceed, Miss Montgomery. Rebecca pulled a document out of the envelope. It wasn't a tax return. It was a certificate of incorporation from the British Virgin Islands, stapled to a deed from the state of Nevada. "Vincent," Rebecca said, her voice dropping an octave, losing all the trembling vulnerability she had shown earlier, "you were right about one thing. My pottery business didn't make any money. It wasn't designed to. Then what is it? Vincent asked, frowning. It's a holding company, Rebecca said. Holding what? Unsold vases. Rebecca smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile that Vincent had never seen before. No, she said, holding the intellectual property rights to the encryption algorithm you use for Crawford Technologies. The room went dead silent. Vincent turned pale. What were you talking about? You never checked the copyright filings, did you, Vincent? You were too busy picking out jewelry for Melissa, Rebecca said, gesturing to the mistress, who was now looking very nervous. 3 years ago, when you were struggling to fix the code for your security platform, I fixed it. I wrote the patch. And since I did it on my own time, on my own laptop, and as you so eloquently pointed out, I was just a housewife contributing nothing to your company, I filed a patent under my own LLC. That's a lie, Vincent screamed, standing up in the witness box. I wrote that code. No, you wrote the interface, Rebecca corrected. I wrote the engine. And Rebecca's Artisan Pottery owns 100% of the patent for the Crawford Shield Protocol. She turned to the judge. And since Mr. Crawford just waived all rights to my business and its holdings, he technically just handed me total control over the software that runs his entire company. Diana Morrison's face went white. She began frantically flipping through her files. Your Honor, this is ambush litigation. It's not an ambush, Rebecca said calmly. It's business. But that's not the only thing, Vincent. Rebecca reached into the envelope again. You also mocked me for having $42 in my checking account. You assumed that was all I had. You're broke, Vincent stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. I saw the statements. You saw the statements from my household account, Rebecca said. The one you gave me an allowance for. But you didn't know about my inheritance. The $50,000? Vincent laughed nervously. That's gone. No, Rebecca said. Not that inheritance. I'm talking about my grandfather's trust. He passed away 6 months ago. You were too busy working late to come to the funeral. Remember? Rebecca pulled out a bank letterhead. It was heavy cream-colored paper with gold embossing. The logo at the top read, the Bank of Edinburgh, Private Wealth Division. My grandfather was Lord Alistair Montgomery, Earl of Thornfield, Rebecca said. He didn't like you, Vincent. He thought you were a pompous climber. So he put my inheritance in a blind trust until I was either 35 or divorced. She handed the paper to the bailiff to give to the judge. Judge Hamilton took the paper. He put on his glasses. His eyebrows shot up so high, they almost touched his hairline. He looked at the paper, then at Rebecca, then at Vincent. Ms. Montgomery, the judge said, his voice filled with genuine shock. Is this figure correct? Yes, Your Honor, Rebecca replied. Mr. Crawford, the judge said, looking at the arrogant man who was now trembling, you mocked your ex-wife for having $42. According to the certified statement, Ms. Montgomery currently possesses liquid assets in excess of 180 million pounds. That is approximately $230 million. The gas that went through the courtroom was louder than a gunshot. Melissa, the mistress, audibly gasped, $230 million. Vincent looked like he was going to vomit. He gripped the railing of the witness stand. That's impossible. She's nobody. I am nobody, Rebecca agreed, staring him down. I'm just the ex-wife you tried to crush. But here's the twist, Vincent. I don't want your money. I have plenty of my own. She took a step closer to the stand. But I do want justice. And since Rebecca's Artisan Pottery owns your software, I am formally issuing a cease and desist order. You are using my technology without a license. I want Crawford Technologies to shut down its servers effective immediately. Judge Hamilton slammed his gavel, struggling to be heard over the murmurs of the gallery. Order in this court. The noise died down, but the tension was electric. Vincent Crawford stood frozen in the witness box, his face a mask of disbelief and rapidly growing fury. He looked at Rebecca, really looked at her for the first time in years. He didn't see the woman who darned his socks or cooked his keto meals anymore. He saw a threat, a massive multi-million-dollar threat. We will take a 1-hour recess, Judge Hamilton announced, eyeing the chaotic scene. Mr. Crawford, Ms. Montgomery, or should I say, Lady Montgomery, I suggest you both use this time to speak with your counsel. If what Miss Montgomery says is true regarding the intellectual property rights, this divorce case just became a corporate litigation nightmare. The gavel banged. All rise. Rebecca gathered her papers calmly. She didn't look at Vincent. She simply turned and walked toward the heavy oak doors. Rebecca, wait. Vincent scrambled out of the witness box, nearly tripping over the step. Diana Morrison grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his suit jacket. Vincent, do not speak to her without me present, Diana hissed. You've already done enough damage waiving the rights to her company. Vincent shook her off. She's bluffing Diana. She has to be. $230 million. It's a fake document. She printed it at Kinko's. He stormed out into the marble hallway, catching up to Rebecca just near the water fountains. Melissa, the mistress, trotted behind him on her stilettos, looking confused and terrified. Rebecca, Vincent shouted, grabbing her shoulder. Rebecca spun around. She didn't flinch. She brushed his hand off her cardigan as if it were a piece of lint. Don't touch me, Vincent. That's assault, and I can afford much better lawyers than you now. Drop the act. Vincent sneered, leaning in close, his cologne overpowering in the small space. What is this? Some kind of sick joke? You think a piece of paper makes you powerful? I built Crawford Technologies. Me, you were just a background noise. I was the engine, Vincent, Rebecca said coldly. And now I'm the landlord and you're getting evicted. I'll sue you for fraud, Vincent spat. I'll claim you stole company secrets to file that patent. I'll bury you in litigation for 20 years. You might have inherited money, but you don't have the stomach for a war. You're weak. You always were. She's not alone anymore, Mr. Crawford. The voice came from the elevators. It was deep baritone and commanded instant respect. A man stepped forward. He was older, perhaps in his 60s, with silver hair and a suit that cost more than Vincent's car. He carried a leather briefcase that looked like it had seen the inside of the Supreme Court more than once. Diana Morrison, who had just caught up to them, stopped dead in her tracks. Her face went pale. Harrison Lancaster. Vincent looked at his lawyer. Who is this guy? Harrison Lancaster, Diana whispered, her voice trembling. He's the managing partner at Lancaster, Pembroke, and Rhodes. He represents the royal family. He doesn't do divorce court. I do when the client is the daughter of my oldest friend, Harrison said, stepping next to Rebecca. He placed a protective hand on her shoulder. Hello, Rebecca. Your grandmother sends her love. Thank you, Harrison, Rebecca said, smiling warmly. I'm sorry to drag you into this nonsense. Nonsense, Harrison replied. He turned his steely gaze to Vincent. Mr. Crawford, Ms. Morrison, my client, Lady Rebecca, has been representing herself today simply to allow you to dig your own grave. And you did a marvelous job waiving rights to the IP holding company. Brilliant strategy. Diana looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Mr. Lancaster, clearly there's been a misunderstanding regarding the marital assets. There is no misunderstanding. Harrison cut her off. He pulled a thick document from his briefcase and shoved it into Vincent's chest. What is this? Vincent demanded. That, Harrison said, is a temporary restraining order and an injunction against Crawford Technologies. Since you are currently using the Crawford Shield encryption without a license from Rebecca's Artisan Pottery, we are shutting you down. We have already served a notice to your server farms in Denver. They are powering down as we speak. Vincent's phone buzzed. Then it buzzed again. Then it began to vibrate continuously. He pulled it out. Messages from his CTO, his VP of sales, and his investors were flooding the screen. System critical failure. Encryption keys revoked. Client data exposed. You turned it off, Vincent whispered, looking up at Rebecca with horror. You can't do that. We have live clients, banks, hospitals. Then I suggest you negotiate a licensing fee, Rebecca said calmly. But the price just went up significantly. Vincent looked at Melissa. Do something, he he screamed at her. Call someone. Melissa recoiled. Who am I supposed to call, Vincent? I plan your lunch menu. You're useless, Vincent roared, his facade of the cool billionaire completely shattering. Everyone around me is useless. Mr. Crawford, Harrison warned, stepping forward. I suggest you lower your voice before I add harassment to the list of charges. Vincent panted, his face red. He looked at Rebecca, searching for the submissive wife he knew. Rebecca, baby, look, let's not destroy everything we built. We can talk about this. We can fix this. Just turn the servers back on. Please. Rebecca looked at him with pity. We didn't build it, Vincent. I built it. You sold it. And now I'm repossessing it. She turned to Harrison. Shall we get lunch, Harrison? The cafeteria sushi looks questionable, but I'm suddenly very hungry. After you, my dear, Harrison said. They walked away, leaving Vincent hyperventilating in the hallway, his phone vibrating like a time bomb in his hand. The afternoon session was a bloodbath, with Harrison Lancaster now officially on record as Rebecca's co-counsel. Diana Morrison was outmatched. Every objection she raised was swatted down with obscure case law that Harrison recited from memory. By 4 p.m., the court adjourned for the day. Judge Hamilton stated that given the complexity of the new evidence, the trial would resume in 2 days. Vincent didn't wait for his lawyers. He stormed out of the courthouse, loosened his tie, and marched toward his matte black Range Rover. Melissa scurried after him, her heels clicking frantically on the pavement. Vincent, wait. What are we going to do? My credit card was declined at lunch. Vincent spun around at the car door. The paparazzi were gathering at the bottom of the steps, sensing the drama, but they were out of earshot. Your credit card? Vincent laughed, a manic, terrifying sound. My company is bleeding $5 million an hour because my vindictive ex-wife just bricked our software. And you're worried about your credit card? I need to buy a dress for the gala on Saturday, Melissa whined, oblivious of the gravity of the situation. There is no gala, Vincent screamed, slamming his hand on the roof of the car. There is no gala, Melissa. There is no Miami house. If she doesn't turn that code back on, Crawford Technologies is insolvent by Friday. I'm broke. Do you understand? Broke. Melissa froze, the color drained from her face. But you said you had offshore accounts. You said you had money hidden that she couldn't touch. Vincent's eyes widened. He grabbed Melissa's arm hard. Shut up, you idiot. Do not talk about the Caymans in public. Melissa winced, pulling her arm away. You're hurting me. I'll hurt you more if you open your mouth, Vincent hissed. Get in the car. We're going to the office to shred everything before Lancaster sends a discovery team. No, Melissa said, taking a step back. Vincent paused. What did you say? I said no, Melissa said, her voice shaking but gaining strength. She looked at Vincent, sweaty, desperate, cruel. Then she looked toward the courthouse exit where Rebecca was walking out, looking elegant and composed, with Harrison Lancaster opening a limousine door for her. Melissa did the math. She was 24. She wasn't married to Vincent. If he went down, she got nothing. In fact, if he was hiding illegal assets, she could be an accomplice. I'm not going with you, Melissa said. I'm taking an Uber. You walk away from me and you're done, Vincent threatened. You're back to being nobody. Better a nobody than a prison wife, Melissa muttered. She turned and walked away, pulling out her phone. Vincent cursed, jumped into his Range Rover, and peeled out of the parking lot, nearly hitting a news van. 2 hours later, Rebecca sat in the library of Harrison Lancaster's townhouse in Lincoln Park. It was a stark contrast to her small studio apartment. The injunction is holding, Harrison said, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. Diana filed an emergency motion to lift it, but no judge will touch it until the ownership of the LLC is verified. And since you have the Nevada deeds, we're solid. He's going to try something desperate, Rebecca said, staring into the fireplace. I know him. He doesn't know how to lose. Let him, Harrison said. Men like Vincent Crawford always hang themselves if you give them enough rope. The butler knocked on the heavy oak door. Sir, there is a young woman at the gate. She says it is urgent. She says she has information for Lady Rebecca. Rebecca frowned. Who is it? She gave her name as Melissa, madam. Harrison raised an eyebrow. The mistress? This is interesting. Let her in, Rebecca said. A few minutes later, Melissa was led into the library. She looked small and out of place, clutching her designer purse like a shield. Her eyes were red from crying. Rebecca, Melissa said, her voice trembling. I didn't know where else to go. This is a surprise, Rebecca said coolly, not inviting her to sit. Usually, you're sending me photos of you and Vincent on my vacation time. What changed? Did the credit limit drop? Melissa flinched. I deserve that. I know I do. I was awful to you. Vincent told me you were crazy. He told me you were mean and cold. And you believe him because he bought you bracelets, Rebecca said. What do you want, Melissa? He's going to run, Melissa blurted out. Harrison set his glass down. Explain. In the parking lot, Melissa said, speaking fast. He panicked. He screamed at me about the Cayman accounts. He said he had to go to the office to shred documents before you sent a discovery team. Harrison looked at Rebecca. If he destroys evidence of hidden assets, we might never recover the full value of what he stole from the marital estate. There's more, Melissa said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a USB drive. What is that? Rebecca asked. Vincent is sloppy, Melissa said, a bitter smile touching her lips. He treats everyone like they're stupid. He used to make me sync his phone and his laptop because he couldn't be bothered to wait for it. He forgot I had his passwords. She held out the USB drive. This is a backup of his private ledger. The real one, not the one he showed the court. Rebecca took the drive. It felt light, but the weight of what it contained was immense. Why give this to me? Rebecca asked. You love him, don't you? I love the lifestyle, Melissa admitted, her voice hollow. But today, when he looked at me in the parking lot, I saw it. He doesn't love anyone but himself. And I'm not going to jail for him. Melissa took a deep breath. There's a folder in there marked Project Phoenix. I don't know what it means, but whenever he opened it, he looked scared. I think that's where the bodies are buried. Harrison stood up immediately, pulling out his cell phone. Rebecca, plug that into the air-gap laptop over there. I'm calling the district attorney. If he's shredding documents right now, we can get a police warrant for obstruction of justice. Rebecca plugged the drive in. She clicked on the folder marked Project Phoenix. Her eyes widened as she scanned the spreadsheets. Harrison, she whispered. Hang up the phone. What is it? It's not just money laundering, Rebecca said, her face pale. Vincent didn't just steal my code. He's selling the user data. He's selling the private security data of his clients to foreign intelligence agencies. The room went silent. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was treason. He's selling backdoor access to Crawford's shield, Rebecca realized. That's how he got the investors. He's selling the keys to the castle. If that's true, Harrison said, his voice grave, Vincent isn't just going to lose his company. He's going to federal prison for the rest of his life. Suddenly, Rebecca's phone rang. It was an unknown number. She answered it on speaker. Hello? You think you're smart, don't you? Vincent's voice came through, distorted and manic. Background noise suggesting he was in a server room. You turn off the code. Fine. But you forgot one thing, Rebecca. Give it up, Vincent, Rebecca said. We have the ledger. I don't care about the ledger, Vincent screamed. I'm at the office, and I just rigged the cooling system in the main server room to fail. In 10 minutes, the heat will melt the drives. My data, your code, the evidence, it's all going to burn. If I can't have it, nobody can. The line went dead. Rebecca looked at Harrison. We have to stop him. The sleek black town car tore through the streets of Chicago, ignoring red lights. In the back seat, Harrison Lancaster was on the phone with the police commissioner. Yes, Commissioner. He's threatening to destroy evidence of federal crimes. We are 3 minutes away. Send a YesU team now. Rebecca sat next to him, her knuckles white as she gripped the door handle. She wasn't worried about the money. She was worried about the code. If Vincent melted those servers, the encryption keys would be lost and thousands of innocent clients, hospitals, banks, schools, would have their data exposed to the hackers Vincent had sold access to. He doesn't understand the physics, Rebecca murmured, watching the city blur by. If he disables the liquid cooling and overrides the thermal shutdown, the battery backups in that room will explode before the drives melt. He's going to kill himself. They screeched to a halt in front of the Crawford Technologies headquarters. The glass-fronted building was dark, except for the flashing red emergency strobes on the lobby floor. Wait for the police. Harrison yelled as Rebecca opened her door. There's no time. Rebecca shouted back. She kicked off her heels and ran barefoot toward the entrance. She reached the biometric scanner. It was flashing red. Lockdown initiated. Rebecca didn't panic. She punched in a sequence of numbers on the manual override pad. It wasn't Vincent's code. It was the God Mode code she had written into the building security system 3 years ago. A back door she created when Vincent forgot his badge for the 10th time. Access granted. Welcome, Administrator. The doors hissed open. Rebecca sprinted to the elevators, but they were grounded. She hit the stairwell, running up 4 flights of stairs to the server floor. The heat hit her the moment she opened the door to the hallway. It was like stepping into an oven. The air smelled of ozone and burning plastic. She burst into the main server room. Vincent was there. He had taken a fire axe from the emergency case on the wall and was smashing the control consoles. Sparks showered down around him. He looked deranged, his tie gone, his shirt soaked in sweat, his eyes wide and bloodshot. "Stop it!" Rebecca screamed, her voice echoing over the roar of the dying fans. Vincent spun around, heaving the axe. He laughed, a breathless, jagged sound. "You!" he yelled. "You came to watch the fireworks. You're too late, Rebecca. It's already 120 degrees in here. Another 10 minutes, and the platters warp. No evidence, no leverage. I win." "You're not winning, Vincent. You're creating a bomb," Rebecca shouted, stepping closer despite the heat. "The lithium-ion backups are right behind you. If the temperature hits 140, they go into thermal runaway. You'll vaporize this entire floor." "Liar," Vincent screamed, swinging the axe at a server rack. Glass shattered. "You just want the code. You want to take my company." "It's not your company," Rebecca yelled back, finding a strength she had buried for years. "I wrote the code. I designed the architecture. I built this while you were out cheating on me. It was never yours." Vincent stopped. He panted, leaning on the axe handle. The truth hit him harder than the heat. "I made you," he sneered, though his voice wavered. "You were nothing without me." "I was a genius without you," Rebecca corrected. "With you, I was a victim. But that ends tonight." She moved toward the main console. "Don't touch it." Vincent raised the axe again, stepping toward her. "Drop the weapon." The voice boomed from the doorway. 3 Chicago PD officers in tactical gear stood there, weapons drawn, and aimed squarely at Vincent's chest. Harrison Lancaster was right behind them, looking uncharacteristically disheveled but fiercely determined. "Police, drop it now." Vincent looked at the police, then at Rebecca, then at the burning servers. For a second, he looked like he was going to swing at the officers. "Do it, Vincent," Rebecca said softly. "Add assaulting an officer to the treason charges. Make it easy for them." Vincent's shoulders slumped. The axe clattered to the floor. He fell to his knees, burying his face in his hands. "Get him out of here," the lead officer shouted. 2 officers rushed forward, zip-tying Vincent's hands behind his back and dragging him out of the room. Rebecca didn't watch him go. She rushed to the console. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. The screen was flickering, warning of imminent thermal failure. System override. Initiate emergency venting. Halon gas deployment enabled. "Everyone out," Rebecca yelled at Harrison and the remaining officer. "Gas deployment in 10 seconds. They scrambled into the hallway and slammed the heavy fire door shut. A massive whoosh shook the walls as the fire suppression system dumped the chemical gas into the room, instantly sucking the oxygen out and cooling the equipment. Rebecca slumped against the wall, sliding down to the floor. She was sweating, covered in soot and trembling. Harrison knelt beside her. "Did you save it?" Rebecca looked up, a tired smile crossing her face. "I saved the client data," she said. "But Project Phoenix, I didn't delete it." "What did you do?" "I quarantined it," Rebecca said. "I packaged every email, every transaction, every secret deal Vincent made with foreign agents, and I just auto-forwarded it to the FBI Cyber Division." Harrison chuckled, shaking his head in amazement. "Remind me never to make you angry, Lady Montgomery." 3 months later, the fall of Vincent Crawford was the biggest news story of the year. The media dubbed it the Crawford Crash. The footage of him being dragged out of his building in handcuffs played on a loop on every news channel from Chicago to Seoul. But today, the circus was finally ending. Rebecca sat in the front row of the federal courthouse. This time, she wasn't wearing a thrift store cardigan. She was wearing a tailored white Alexander McQueen suit that screamed power and elegance. Her hair was down, cascading in waves over her shoulders. She looked every inch the billionaire she was. Next to her sat Melissa. The former mistress had turned state's witness. In exchange for her testimony and the USB drive, she had been granted immunity. She looked humble, dressed in a simple navy dress, keeping her head down. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Hamilton, who had requested to oversee the final asset dissolution, sat on the bench, but the criminal sentencing was being handled by a federal judge, a stern woman named Judge Carter. Vincent was led in. He looked like a ghost of his former self. His hair was shaved. He had lost 20 pounds, and the orange prison jumpsuit washed out his complexion. He didn't look at the gallery. He stared at the floor. "Mr. Crawford," Judge Carter began, "you have pleaded guilty to 17 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of corporate espionage, and 2 counts of violating the International Emergency Economic Powers Act." The judge paused, looking over her glasses. "Your actions were driven by greed and a staggering amount of arrogance. You not only defrauded your wife, but you also endangered national security to line your own pockets. You built a life on lies. And when that life was threatened, you attempted to destroy the evidence." Vincent said nothing. "It is the judgment of this court," she continued, "that you be sentenced to 25 years in the federal penitentiary with no possibility of parole for at least 20 years. Furthermore, all assets held by Crawford Technologies are to be seized and liquidated to pay restitution to the victims." Vincent closed his eyes as the gavel came down. 25 years. He would be an old man when he got out. As the marshals moved to take him away, Vincent stopped. He turned his head and looked at Rebecca. "Why?" he croaked. "You had the money. You had the inheritance. You could have just left. Why did you have to burn me down?" Rebecca stood up. The courtroom went silent. "Because, Vincent," she said, her voice carrying clearly to the back of the room, "you mocked me. You told the world I was worthless. You told the court I was a burden." She took a step closer to the railing. "I didn't burn you down because I hated you. I did it to show you that the burden was the one holding you up all along. You didn't fall because I pushed you. You fell because I stopped carrying you." Vincent stared at her, his mouth slightly open. He finally understood. The marshals grabbed his arms. "Let's go, Crawford." They dragged him out the side door. He was gone. Judge Hamilton, who was overseeing the civil side of the matter, cleared his throat. "Lady Montgomery," Hamilton said, a respectful tone in his voice. "Regarding the civil suit, with Mr. Crawford's assets seized, the court awards you full ownership of the intellectual property known as the Crawford Shield Protocol, to be returned to your holding company, Rebecca's Artisan Pottery." A ripple of laughter went through the courtroom at the name. Rebecca smiled. "Thank you, Your Honor. However, I will be renaming the company effective immediately." "Oh, to what?" "Montgomery Security," Rebecca said, "and I've already hired a new CEO." She turned and looked at Melissa. Melissa looked up, shocked. "Me?" "No," Rebecca laughed. "Not you. You need to go to community college and learn a trade." "Melissa, I've hired a woman named Catherine, the lead engineer Vincent fired 2 years ago because she got pregnant. She's going to run the company properly." Rebecca picked up her bag. A new Birkin that matched your suit. But, Melissa, Rebecca added, I did set up a small education fund for you. Consider it a thank you for the USB drive. Don't waste it on jewelry. Melissa burst into tears of gratitude. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. Rebecca walked out of the courtroom, Harrison Lancaster at her side. The paparazzi were waiting outside, a sea of flashing lights. Lady Montgomery, how does it feel to take down your ex-husband? Lady Montgomery, what are you going to do with your billions? Rebecca stopped on the steps of the courthouse. She put on her sunglasses. I'm going to go to my pottery studio, she said to the cameras. I have a clay pot I need to finish. It's going to be a masterpiece. She got into the limousine. As the door closed, she didn't look back at the courthouse. She looked forward to a future that was finally completely her own. 1 year later, the skyline of Chicago looked different from the corner office on the 40th floor. It looked brighter, cleaner. Rebecca Montgomery stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of Montgomery Security. The office no longer looked like the bro-code frat house Vincent had designed. The dark, oppressive mahogany was gone, replaced by sleek glass, light oak, and living walls of greenery. The energy was different, too. People weren't running around in fear of being screamed at. They were working, laughing, and collaborating. Catherine, the new CEO Rebecca had reinstated, walked in holding a tablet. She was glowing, pregnant with her second child, and leading the company to its most profitable quarter in history. We just got the contract with the Swiss Banking Federation, Catherine said, beaming. They dropped their O provided the moment they saw our new quantum encryption demo. You're a genius, Rebecca. Rebecca smiled, turning away from the view. I just wrote the code, Catherine. You closed the deal. How are the numbers? Up 200%, Catherine said. And the stock price is stabilizing at a record high. But there is one small problem downstairs. Rebecca's smile faded slightly. Problem? Security stopped a woman in the lobby, Catherine said, looking uncomfortable. She doesn't have an appointment, and she's refusing to leave. She says she's family. Rebecca felt a cold shiver, despite the warm sunlight streaming in. She knew exactly who it was. Send her up, Rebecca said quietly. Let's finish this. 10 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Patricia Crawford stepped out. Vincent's mother looked older than Rebecca remembered. The woman who used to critique Rebecca's dusting and complained that her cooking was too peasant-like now looked frail. Her Chanel suit was from a few seasons ago, and her hair was a little less perfectly coiffed, but her eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, and full of misplaced superiority. Patricia marched into the office, ignoring Catherine, and slammed her purse on Rebecca's desk. You have some nerve, Patricia spat, her voice trembling with indignation. Rebecca didn't stand up. She leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. Hello, Patricia. To what do I owe the pleasure? I assumed you were busy visiting Vincent in federal prison. Don't you speak his name? Patricia screeched. My son is rotting in a cell because of you. You set him up. You seduced him into that life, and then you turned on him like a snake. Rebecca laughed. It was a genuine, incredulous laugh. I seduced him into corporate espionage, Patricia. I was begging him to pay the electric bill while he was buying you diamond brooches. He was a good provider, Patricia yelled. He took care of his mother. And now the government took everything. They took my house in Evanston. They took my car. They even froze my pension because it was funded by illicit assets. I am living in a rental apartment in Oak Park, Rebecca. Oak Park. I hear Oak Park is lovely this time of year, Rebecca said dryly. What do you want, Patricia? Patricia straightened her jacket, trying to summon her old authority. I want what is mine. Vincent told me. He told me that before you hijacked the company, he had set aside a trust fund for me, a rainy day fund. He said you have access to the old accounts. There is no fund, Rebecca said. Vincent spent everything on himself, on his mistresses, and on you. Liar, Patricia hissed. You have billions now. You're Lady Montgomery, aren't you? The Earl's daughter. You have so much money you could burn it. And yet you let your mother-in-law starve. Ex-mother-in-law, Rebecca corrected. And I'm not letting you starve. I'm letting you experience reality. Patricia's face twisted. She leaned over the desk, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You think you've won? You think you're some high society queen now? You're still the same pathetic orphan Vincent found at that art school. You'll never be one of us. You're cold. That's why he cheated on you. You couldn't keep a man happy. The room went silent. Catherine, standing in the corner, looked ready to call security, but Rebecca didn't flinch. She stood up slowly. She walked around the desk until she was face to face with Patricia. You're right, Patricia, Rebecca said softly. I couldn't keep him happy. Do you know why? Because you're inadequate, Patricia sneered. No, Rebecca said, her voice hard as steel. Because he was a black hole. And do you know who made him that way? You did. Patricia blinked, taken aback. You taught him that he was entitled to everything, Rebecca continued, stepping closer. You taught him that rules were for poor people. You taught him that women were accessories. You created the monster that destroyed this company. Vincent didn't fail because of me. He failed because he was trying to fill the void you put inside him. Rebecca walked to the door and opened it. I looked at the ledger, Patricia, the Project Phoenix funds. A huge chunk of that treason money didn't go to Vincent. It went to Patricia Crawford Consulting. He was paying you $50,000 a month to do nothing. Patricia went pale. That was for interior design advice. It was money laundering, Rebecca said. The FBI missed it because it was buried under shell companies. But I have the files. I could send them to the district attorney right now. You get 5 to 10 years as an accomplice. Patricia began to tremble violently. The arrogance evaporated, replaced by pure terror. Please, Patricia whispered. I'm an old woman. Then leave, Rebecca said, pointing to the elevator. Get out of my building. Get out of my life. If you ever contact me or the press or anyone associated with this company again, I will press send on that email. Do you understand? Patricia nodded frantically. She grabbed her purse and scurried out of the office, looking small and defeated. She didn't look back. Catherine let out a long breath. Remind me to never get on your bad side, boss. She won't be back, Rebecca said, closing the door. She felt a weight lift off her shoulders that she hadn't realized was there. The last link to the toxicity of the past was severed. Now, Rebecca said, turning back to Catherine with a smile, I believe we have a gala to get ready for. The Montgomery Foundation Charity Gala was the event of the season. The ballroom of the Drake Hotel was transformed into a winter wonderland of white roses and crystal chandeliers. Rebecca stood at the top of the grand staircase. She wore a bespoke emerald green gown that hugged her silhouette, paired with the Montgomery family diamonds, jewels that had been locked in a vault for decades. She looked regal, unstoppable. As she descended the stairs, the room fell silent, then erupted in applause. These were the same people who had snubbed her when she was Vincent's mousy wife. Now they clamored for her attention. Harrison Lancaster was waiting at the bottom of the stairs, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Next to him stood a man Rebecca hadn't met formally, though she had seen him in meetings. He was tall with dark hair and eyes that held a spark of intelligence and kindness. He wore a tuxedo as if he had been born in it. Rebecca, Harrison said, bowing slightly, you look magnificent. Thank you, Harrison, Rebecca replied. And thank you for handling the situation with the prison transfer. I hear Vincent is enjoying his new accommodations in Alaska. It's very cold there, Harrison noted with a smirk. Rebecca, I'd like to introduce you to my nephew. He just flew in from London to head up our international litigation department, Julian Pembroke. The tall man stepped forward and took Rebecca's hand. He didn't kiss it. That would have been presumptuous. He simply held it with a firm, warm grip. It is an honor, Lady Montgomery, Julian said. His voice was deep with a refined British accent. I followed your work on the encryption protocols. The way you restructured the kernel architecture was poetic. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. You read the code? I dabbled in computer science at Cambridge before I went into law. Julian smiled. I prefer logic to chaos. What you did wasn't just justice, Rebecca. It was elegant. Rebecca felt a flush on her cheeks that had nothing to do with the champagne. For years, Vincent had rolled his eyes at her tech talk. He had called it boring. Here was a man who called it poetic. Would you care to dance? Julian asked, offering his arm. Rebecca hesitated for a split second. The old Rebecca, the one who had been beaten down by criticism, would have said no. She would have worried about stepping on his toes or people staring. But that woman didn't exist anymore. I would love to, Rebecca said. They moved to the dance floor. The orchestra played a waltz. Julian led her effortlessly. He didn't try to dominate the space. He moved with her. I heard about what happened today, Julian said softly as they turned. With Vincent's mother. That was brave. It was necessary, Rebecca said. I'm done carrying other people's baggage. Good, Julian said, looking into her eyes. Because you have a lot of building to do. The world is watching Montgomery security. Let them watch, Rebecca said, smiling. I have nothing to hide anymore. As the music swelled, Rebecca looked around the room. She saw her friends, her loyal employees, her new life. She had entered the fire a victim, and she had walked out a queen. She had lost a husband who didn't love her, but she had found the one thing she had been missing all along, herself. And as Julian spun her around, laughing, Rebecca knew that this wasn't the end of her story. It was just the beginning. And that is the incredible story of Rebecca Montgomery. She went from being mocked in a courtroom for having $42 to becoming one of the most powerful women in the tech world. It's a powerful reminder that you should never underestimate someone just because they're quiet. Vincent Crawford thought he was untouchable because he had a fancy suit and a loud voice. But he forgot the golden rule. Be nice to the people on your way up because you might meet them on your way down. Rebecca didn't just get revenge. She got justice. She proved that true value isn't about what you wear or who you date. It's about what you build and how you treat people. Vincent built a house of cards on lies, and Rebecca built a fortress on truth. What do you think? Did Vincent deserve 25 years? Or was that too harsh? And what would you have done if your mother-in-law showed up demanding money after everything she did? I know I would have kicked her out even faster. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed the story of instant karma and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We upload brand new drama every single day. Thanks for watching, and remember, the truth always comes out in the end.